Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's meeting of full council. I'm Councillor Geary, the Mayor. Members and officers have their names in front of them for ease of reference. In order to assist in the process of this evening, I must ask everyone to ensure that their mobile phones are either switched off or on silent mode. We would be grateful if you would remain quiet whilst the meeting is in progress. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be filmed by the council and broadcast live on the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the chamber, it is possible that the cameras will capture your image. By your presence, you are deemed to consent to be filmed and the use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting or training purposes. As chairman of the meeting, I can, at my discretion, terminate or suspend filming. If, in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings of this meeting, I will consider and continue the filming might infringe on the rights of the individual or breach that statutory provision. Finally, there are no planned fire drills this evening, and if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately via the emergency exit, either in the corner of the chamber or by the door you came in. Would you please remain standing while my chaplain leads us in prayer?
Let us pray. O eternal Lord God, from whom alone cometh wisdom and understanding, we beseech thee to direct aright the minds of those who are about to take counsel together on matters pertaining to the common life of this borough of Christchurch, that in all their deliberations and decisions they may faithfully discharge the duties of their office and ever promote the health, safety and well-being of those they seek to serve, for the honour and glory of thy holy name. Amen. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen.
Please be seated. We take item 2 on the agenda. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have apologies from Councillors Abbott, Davis and Mr. Jameson.
Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interests by members. Doesn't seem to be anybody. We take item 4 on the agenda, the minutes of the last meetings. Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Proposed as set out.
Councillor Mrs. Jameson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to second as set out.
I put proposition to the meeting. Those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Okay. Take item 4 on the agenda, announcements. And it seems to be me first. It's been quite a busy time since the last we met at the council, and the deputy mayors and my mayors and myself have done an awful lot of running about. I would like to share some of the visits that we made. We first of all you went with the rifles at the memorial at the Arboretum up in Staffordshire, and it was a very, very, very moving meeting whereby the Prince Duke of Kent opened the memorial to the rifles. It was very moving. We also visited the Canterbury for the Prince of Wales Royal Regiment, where they received their new colours after 25 years. Another moving visit was to a lovely lady who celebrated her 100th birthday last week. And my wife and I, we presented her with some beautiful flowers, and she was very emotional, and she was very, very fortunate. She had all of her family around her, and she was pleased that we took the trouble to visit her. We're also going to embark on a very special anniversary for our Queen. And I've been reminded by Councillor Mrs. Jones and Councillor Paul Hilliard that this event will be taking place on the 20th of November. That this council, considering the 70th wedding anniversary of Her Majesty the Queen and Prince Philip, we'd like to send warm congratulations to the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh on behalf of our ancient borough. And again, I thank both those two people I mentioned just now for reminding me that the anniversary of their wedding is on the 20th. And I believe that Councillor Denise Jones would like to say a few words about the event.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for allowing me to propose this motion at this time, because the next scheduled meeting would be too late for you to act upon this representation that Councillor Paul Hilliard and I are making, with the hope that our colleagues will support us in this motion, in which we ask you to congratulate the Queen and Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, on their 70th wedding anniversary, sending congratulations from behalf of the ancient borough. Christchurch has a long history of links with royalty. I suppose you could say it began particularly with the creation of Christchurch as one of the ancient boroughs by Alfred the Great, established to protect the people from invasion. It had links with the monarchy throughout Norman times. The gift to the people of the priory by Henry VIII at the time of the dissolution of the monasteries. So I'm sure the vicar will be glad that we were allowed to keep the roof of our ancient church, and it remained relatively intact, unlike most of those owned by monasteries at the time. During the Civil War, we supported the monarchy, a support which saw our castle slighted by the parliamentarians as punishment. When the restoration took place, the mace that is before the mayor was actually brought out of a safe place and restored to us, and has been used ever since. However, during the Second World War, we were also very much involved in the fight against tyranny, the fight for freedom in the world. And many people in this borough will have been part of that fight. They may be elderly now, or they may be children who witnessed these events, but they saw the work that the borough did to protect this country and its monarchy. Well, 2 years after this conflict, this country, still dealing with rationing, with an austerity that was very, very severe, witnessed, in the words of Winston Churchill, a flash of colour on the hard road that we have to travel. I refer, of course, to the marriage of the then Princess Elizabeth to Philip Mountbatten, now made Duke of Edinburgh. well, as we've said, very soon they'll be celebrating 70 years of marriage. A beautiful, unsophisticated bride, a handsome groom, very much in love, and who for 70 years have served this country tirelessly. The people, apart from a few, rejoiced in what seemed to be a milestone on the road to recovery, with the pomp, the pageantry, and the love of two young people who were reminded, as couples today find, that they should have patience, a ready sympathy, and forbearance. Wise words to all. Well, Mr. Mayor, your term of office is 1 year. Enjoyable, satisfying, hard work, but nothing compared with the hard grind that the royal couple have done since they married nearly 70 years ago. Prince Philip, just after his marriage, said he envisaged it as a partnership, a complete union, which would keep them on the road to deal with any struggles that they might come across, and also to be a force for the good. And I'm sure members of the public will agree with me that this is what they have done. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do hope that my colleagues will support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anybody want to speak? No, thank you. I think you've covered everything, Denise, in your little speech, and I think I'll just ask the members for approval for this council to communicate with Her Majesty on her 70th anniversary and with Duke of Edinburgh from this council. Do I have a show of hands on that? That is, I would no doubt expect unanimous. Thank you. Leader of the council, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, I'm sure you're all aware that we still await a decision from the Secretary of State. However, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Joint Committee met formally yesterday, and I have asked the officers to forward the website link, which will enable members to access all the information relating to the committee when it meets. And the next meeting date is scheduled for the 21st of November. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members. I'd like to announce 2 awards that the staff have achieved recently, and I'm sure you'll join in with me and congratulate them. The first is something called the Southwest Challenge. So this is an opportunity for us to enter a team along with other councils in the Southwest. And the idea is that team spend a whole day running a fictitious council, acting as the management team, making decisions, financial plans and the like. As I mentioned, there were 16 teams in the Southwest Challenge this year, and our team were runners-up. So second out of that group. And in particular, part of the assignment was to set out how they would work in partnerships with other organisations, other parts of the public sector, business sector and the community. And the team from Christchurch and East also actually won the partnership award. So I'm sure you'll join with me in congratulating the team on that, one of whom is here, actually, Kerry, sitting there. Secondly, I would like to mention an award that was won by the council. So with your support and your commitment and decisions that you've made over the last couple of years about how we're going to work. And so we entered into the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development's annual award process, and in particular in the Best Change Management Initiative category. So this is based on the work that, as I mentioned, we've done over the last couple of years. We call it smarter working. Members would be very familiar with how the staff work in terms of doing so more efficiently, rationalising the office accommodation, driving down our cost and delivering services to the community. And the thing that was different about this particular award process was it's not just restricted to the public sector or to councils, but it involved the private sector as well. So it's on a national basis, anyone can enter. We entered that particular category on Best Change Management Initiative, and I'm very pleased to say that in competition with organisations like Sky TV and other household names, we won. So I think that's a great acknowledgement of the success of what we've all been engaged in over the last couple of years, and with your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'll convey your thanks and congratulations to the staff.
Thank you. Can I just say, David, very well done. Now take item 6, questions by members of the public. I believe there are no questions. Thank you. Item 7, petitions by members of the public. I believe that no petitions have been received in the due time on this occasion. Take item 8, questions by members of the council. And again, I have to advise that no questions have been received by members of the council on this occasion. I take item 9, committee minutes. I would like to ask David Flagg as the proposer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to rise and propose that the council receive the minutes of the committee meetings for the last cycle of meetings marked on the papers this evening, 9A to H. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe you have a seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy to second as set out.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, we're
£10.
only ching. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are only receiving the minutes, but I would like to draw members' attention to the meeting of the Resources Committee, which is on your separate handout. In particular, the reference to the new charges and other arrangements for planning. It is disappointing to note, and I speak as Vice Chairman of Scrutiny, that Scrutiny Committee's concerns were, I'm sure they were noted, but I would have hoped that it could have been reported, particularly that Scrutiny Committee did feel that the abolition of a duty officer was a retrograde step. Now, Resources Committee is, of course, well within its rights to ignore what Scrutiny said. However, obviously, I note that the matter will be reviewed, but I can also say that Scrutiny Committee will also be keeping an eye on this matter. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Mayor.
David. So no question.
Chairman, it's not a question, it's an observation on the
Okay,
minutes.
thank you. Councillor Devon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to answer the councillor's point about the duty officer not being in attendance. The duty officer from planning, he's quite right, will not be in attendance, but there will be an officer at all times who will take people through the initial stages of how they get the information. What the councillor is talking about is the fact that we now have to charge for all our services, which is maybe a state of affairs that we don't all appreciate, but I'm afraid that that's the way it is. As far as not taking the recommendation from Scrutiny, word for word, we are bringing it back in 6 months, but it was felt by the officers and myself as chairman and my vice chairman that it was best to give the officers and the whole department time to work as they are going to work in the future. If this does not work out, then clearly scrutiny will take it back and look at it again. But I don't accept that the recommendation wasn't taken seriously. It was, but we decided in another meeting that we should have a longer time to work as we intend to go on. And this is really done because planning is doing so much better now that we are able to charge for the services because they are good services that we are giving.
Thank you. Now I'd like to call upon and invite Councillor Hall to propose the recommendations arriving from the meeting of the Resources Committee held on the 25th of October 2017.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's recommended at minute 170, recommended the revised policy for holding, disposal and acquisition of property as set in the submitted report be approved and adopted. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Minute 171.
Happy to second those.
You're gonna second it?
Sorry, you were going to do the first
Oh, sorry.
two together.
You've all heard the proposition. Any debate? Those in favour? Those to the contrary?
I think it was unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Can I call upon you again, Peter, to
Thank you,
on
Mr.
minute
Mayor.
171?
Item minute 171, it's recommended that revised policy and procedure for disposal of small areas of amenity green space as set out in the submitted report be approved and adopted. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do you have a seconder?
Happy to second again.
Thank you,
Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Jameson.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Declaration of interest, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of my wife and myself, our property adjoins one which is being bid for. I believe the transaction has now been completed, but in which case the matter cannot affect us. But just for the record, there was a small area of land within, I believe, 100 yards of where we live, which we have declared an interest for in the past.
Thank you, David. Is there any further debate on minute 171? And I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? To the contrary? That's unanimous. Thank you, members.
So the minutes as a whole, Chairman.
Now we'll take the minutes as a whole. Those in favour? To the contrary? That's unanimous. Take item 10 on the agenda, the Corporate Plan Progress Report, October 2017. Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, we are some 18 months into the delivery of our joint 4-year corporate plan, and I am pleased to report continued progress in line with our objectives. Underpinned by prudent budgetary management, we have been able to focus on our key priorities despite the uncertainty facing the Council in the forthcoming months and years. To this end, I am pleased to report that the budget setting and medium-term financial planning for the challenges we face in 2019-20 has commenced in earnest. I am also pleased to note our success in achieving runner-up in the GovNews Public Sector Paperless Awards, which the Chief Executive has already brought to our attention this evening. Members, we all understand the value of being active as we can and how this can improve our quality of life. As you can see, I take thorough general exercise to keep up this objective that we have. This is not only important for our own personal well-being, but it is the key to reducing our dependency on stretched health services. It is therefore great to see that more people are getting involved in exercise and this trend continues to grow. The partnership works very hard to support this agenda, working closely with partners and also the direct delivery of services. Our commitment to the Health and Wellbeing Board and also to our locality group will hopefully add further to the momentum of healthy lifestyles that has been established already. Members, I've requested the relevant committee chairs brief you on the relevant sections of the plan this evening. Mr Mayor, I formally propose the motion as set out, and I understand Councillor Hall will second the motion. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm delighted to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions to the leader? Any debate? Then Councillor Nottage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just reiterate the point that the leader has just made of the importance of this document. This is a document that was long time in the making. Everyone was involved in it, and it has a degree of ownership, and therefore is a very important key document going forward. I have two concerns which I'd like to bring to the council, and with an understanding that those responsible will be dealing with the matters that we see before us. Number one is the issue of housing and homelessness. We have a situation currently where we are all aware of the increase of homelessness in the borough and the officers' action to actually deal with that. But we still have a growing problem which we must understand as members what is happening about it. Also, housing, we are in a position whereby there will be a green paper, and I suspect that the budget that will be made very shortly, some details will be given about how councils such as ours can be encouraged to build more affordable housing and all that that means. And therefore, again, a subject which I think will require considerable attention from those responsible. And finally, Mr. Mayor, one thing that I'm concerned about is the increasing issues of crime and disorder. We have a duty under the Section 17 of the 1998 Crime and Disorder Act, without prejudice, to actually reduce crime and disorder and reduce reoffending. And again, we are in a position whereby there are some considerable issues associated with this area, and I will be looking forward, and I'm sure most members would join me in asking that we are kept as members deeply involved in the progress and the initiatives that we as a council are taking to achieve those objectives. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Spittle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to reiterate what Councillor Nottage has said. I'm sorry that's given you the opportunity to respond. Because for a while, as you know, I was very proud to have the portfolio for housing, during which time there was a huge improvement, and I'm exceedingly disappointed that to find the only two arrows pointing down relate to housing. During my time, I insisted, because housing is an extremely complex and difficult subject to get to grips with, I did attend very many training sessions and also had liaisons with the officers as well, who we are very fortunate, I can say, are exceedingly well qualified and well experienced. So I am just wondering whether the lead member, as mentioned here, is able to explain why we have got those two arrows, and as I said, regarding the annual increase in the number of temporary accommodation and also the affordable housing delivery. So I could suggest is she able to now give us that information tonight, or would it be necessary for her then to go back and consult the officers and arrange for a further information to be sent to me? Thank you.
David.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. Can we allow Councillor Hall and Councillor Mrs Darren Wilkes to present the parts of the plan, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilkes. Oh, Councillor Hall, sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Members, stimulating the local economy is vital to the future of our area, and it's also encouraging to note the latest update that employment in key sectors is increasing. Average wages are rising, the number of businesses continue to grow, and the work the partnership is doing to support this progress is positively recognised by the business sector. Real progress and a platform from which to build further on, and I am pleased that members and officers continue to engage with local businesses to help and support where we can. We are all well aware of the pressures councils across the country face in meeting housing targets. Locally, whilst we continue to see house building take place, it is at large scale sites that will make the biggest difference to allow us to meet the overall need for homes. It is anticipated that sites will progress significantly over the next few years. In the meantime, the delivery of affordable housing effectively delivered as part of the large-scale developments remains a challenge, which we must continue to focus on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, speaker's on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, you will no doubt all be pleased to see that we are delivering our new housing in line with our 5-year land supply, but disappointed, as has just been said, that we're not managing this quarter to deliver the affordable housing and temporary accommodation units that we would like. And members, you will see in the comments column the reason for this. But I'm sure, members, that now we have Councillor Claire Bath undertaking a lot of the work in the access to housing area. We will begin to see improvements, Mr. Mayor. We continue to monitor the local crime figures, even though our ability to influence this agenda is somewhat limited. You'll note that in this latest update, crime has increased slightly within our communities, which interestingly remains at odds with our position as a low crime area compared to other parts of the country. I'm confident, however, that we are working positively with our partners, most noticeably the police, in order to support this agenda and ensure that our area remains a safe place to live and visit. To finish on a high, Mr. Mayor, we know we have achieved a lot in recent years in order to adapt to the pressures facing local government, and we think it's important that others can learn from our experience and that our staff can gain satisfaction from the progress we have made. Further to the partnership gaining recognition at the Public Sector Paperless Awards and more recently at the highly prestigious Chartered Institute of Personnel Awards, the partnerships was the winner of the Best Change Management Initiative, where our competitors included the West Midlands Police, Sky and Viola. The congratulations of all of us go to both the officers and the members for the successful delivery in all of these achievements and everything else that you have done over the past year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to speak about growth and economy. Having been the lead member when we instigated the Growth Board and changed the way that we worked with our local businesses. I'm really pleased to see the success of that initiative and the fact that we are continuing to fund the initiative to work not only with our small businesses but with the major employers in our area who are both small and large. The importance of having a strong economic growth in our economy in Christchurch and the surrounding area is crucial to the whole of our community. And that is backed up by making sure that we have the housing and the skills to allow those businesses to grow and actually provide the employment and seek the employees who will allow us to grow our economic base in Christchurch. And I'm really pleased to see that all of the arrows in the economy, growth and economy sector are all pointing upward and are all green. I think the lead member for housing has iterated the problems that we have with supplying affordable housing so that people can stay in this area and continue to actually live in this area and gain employment in this area when we are an area of very high cost housing. And I think that's something that we definitely need to work on in the future in order that our local children can stay here and they can continue to live in this area and gain employment here and increase the economic growth of our area. So I'm pleased with the results on the growth and economy sector, and I'm happy to work with Councillor Darren Wilkes as lead member for housing.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other members who wish to speak? Councillor Jones. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for giving me, for the slight pause, giving me the chance to save myself another £10 and correct what I was going to say. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I suppose it is the eve of the Feast of All Hallows, so things do arise from the past that perhaps have changed. But it was very interesting to hear some of the previous speakers, particularly in regard to the housing issue. Mr. Mayor, I too, when I was chairman of planning and in those days lead councillor for planning policy, attended numerous courses. And one that was very relevant dealt with the problem of the creation of affordable housing. May I possibly ease the concerns of one of my colleagues and refer to the section of the plan on page 61. Affordable housing rests heavily with the larger core strategy allocations. Small developments of 10 or less don't have to pay an affordable housing. Mr. Mayor, builders don't put on affordable housing for free. It costs them money. It is a tax. Therefore, since this type of scheme became policy, government policy, we can't do anything about it. The number of developers who spend time and a lot of skill looking for areas to develop 10 or less has increased sharply. Therefore, it's no surprise, and it's nothing to do with the present portfolio holder for housing, or beg pardon, the councillor for housing, that the number of affordable housing has fallen. It's just inevitable. You tax something, you tax the supply of something, the supply falls. Okay. The second point that I would make on here is that, again, the government, in my opinion, very unwisely, the former Chancellor, decided to put another tax on private rented accommodation by withdrawing tax relief on buy-to-let. Again, you increase the price, the supply falls. And finally, the housing arrows aren't the only two downward arrows, the two for crime are. But again, I have said time and time again in the time of the last Labour government, when we were dealing with targets and indicators and whatever, it's smoke and mirrors. Now, anything that is reported as a hate crime or a racial crime or whatever is a racial crime, no matter whether it actually occurred or not. If somebody says, he called me a Lancastrian, and I regard that as offensive instead of a high compliment, and I go to the police, that's recorded as a crime. Now, in that simple example just shows a fallacy of this type of target. A small sample, as is noted, a dodgy set of parameters, and look, we've got two red arrows. I would ask members not to worry too much about those, and to bear in mind that with regard to housing, nothing this council could do would affect those two factors. Otherwise, a very reliable, very satisfactory progress. I congratulate the leader and his team for the progress that has been made. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other member wish to speak to the minutes? Then I'll put Councillor Nottage.
My name was called, Mr. Mayor, for the benefit of the councillor and the comments that were made earlier on in respect of crime and disorder in this borough. We need to understand quite clearly what our specific responsibilities are. And I read, for the benefit of all members, Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Implications, the Crime and Disorder Act of 1998, which says quite clearly, Councillor, without prejudice to any other obligation imposed on it, it shall be a duty of each authority to which this section applies to exercise its various functions with due regard to the likely effect of the exercise of those functions on and the need to do all that is reasonable to prevent crime and disorder in its area, including antisocial and other behaviour adversely affecting the local environment, and the misuse of drugs, alcohol and other substances in its area, and reoffending in its area. That's our duty as councillors. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
On a point of order. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it in order that a member or members should use the right to make a personal explanation to actually make a speech unrelated to the comments attributed to them by the speaker to whom those remarks were addressed? Mr. Mayor, that is in there to protect a member against a personal misstatement. To abuse it in the way that it is being done is, I am afraid, tantamount to bringing standing orders into disrepute.
Thank you, David. I'll take that as a noted comment. There's no further speakers, so I'll put the minute to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Okay. Thank you, members. Right, we'll now take item 11, which is a notice of motion to to rescind decision received in accordance with procedure of Rule 15. And I now call upon Councillor Vicky Hallam to present it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Following the Community Committee meeting on the 9th of August on 2017, and the decision which was made to not proceed with the reconstruction of the Highcliffe zigzag path, but to determine the best options for making the site safe, a number of members felt that a hasty decision was made with a lack of information, facts and alternative options available to make a sound decision, and therefore decided to put forward a 6-member motion to rescind the decision of the Community Committee Minutes 110. Since the submission of the motion, more information has come to light. Having reviewed the specification given to ACOM, I feel that the longevity of the path set out for 30 years severely restricted the options put to members at the Community Committee. Our residents have voiced their concerns and disappointment at the Community Committee decision, resulting in a 3,250 signature petition seeking the reopening of the path, and have investigated the alternative cheaper solution of gabions. I'm also mindful that during this time the coastal strategy consultation was taking place, the results of which are yet to be published. Whilst I would like to thank the officers for their work that they've done to date on the issue, I do feel that more investigation is required. Highcliffe Castle and the Highcliffe coastline are assets that we're all proud of. We should be exploring all possible options to ensure that full access to and from the beach to the castle is available for our residents and visitors, resulting in a positive impact on their well-being and the local economy. Mr. Mayor, I've drafted an amendment. Please delete all previous and insert the following proposal, which Councillor Bath is happy to second and which has been approved by all 6 signatories of the original motion. I believe you've got the motion in front of you, but I'm happy to read out if you would like me to.
For the benefit of the public.
This council,
for the benefit of the public as well.
Sorry?
For the benefit of the public.
And for the benefit of the public, absolutely. This council rescinds minute 110 of the Community Committee held on the 9th of August 2017. This council establishes a task and finish group to work with the officers and residents to establish an on-gradient link between castle grounds and the beach using elements of the existing zigzag path. The task and finish group will aim to obtain reduced costings by advising ACOM specifications, as well as obtaining a 10, 15 and 20-year solution to be costed by tender. The results of all findings will be brought, and option 4, the option of using gabions and soil-laid posts will also be investigated and costed by tender. The results of all findings will be brought back to full council in January 2018 in conjunction with the outcomes of the coastal strategy. The members of the task and finish group will be as follows: the 2 Highcliffe ward members, the chair and vice chair of community committee, plus 2 members of the adjoining ward of Mudderford and Fry's Cliff, and this is because of the pedestrian links from Steamer Point to the coastal strategy being relevant to both wards. And I'd also like to add Colin Bungay onto the task and finish group. And then lastly, no action be taken to discommission the existing zigzag path. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any questions for Councillor Hallam? Sorry, Councillor Bath, you wish to second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did indicate I would like to second the revised motion and reserve my right to speak later. Thank you.
Now I'll go to questions for Councillor Hallam. Councillor Bungey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Hallam's proposal for me has come a little bit as a surprise, but I'm happy to accept if it will help move things forward. I would like to ask, I don't know whether Councillor Hallam can answer or whether it needs to be an officer's answer. Item 3, to obtain the reduced costing by revising ACOM's specifications for a 10, 15 and 20-year solution. ACOM produced this document and therefore I believe own the document. Are we as a council therefore allowed to tamper with it and draw our own conclusions from it? Perhaps the officers or Councillor Hallam can advise me on that.
Councillor Hallam.
Mr. Mayor, I think that's likely to be an officer answer, I'm afraid.
Lindsay, want to take it?
Mr. Mayor, I can check with either Mr. Cass or Mr. Milner, but we received this alternative motion at 5 o'clock today, so we haven't had any reasonable time in order to analyse it, properly understand what it means, and to give proper advice to the council. So without wishing to sound in any way unhelpful, I would suggest that Councillor Hallam leads on the explanation as to what she means in her amended motion.
Councillor Hallam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For that particular question, I believe that, as I mentioned earlier on, that when we actually went out for specification with ACOM, we asked them for a 30-year guarantee on ensuring that that gradient path would be sound and safe for that 30 years. However, which obviously inflated the price. However, I believe, and I believe that there are other members around this council that feel that it would be useful to look at whether it would be possible to look at a shorter fixed term in terms of what they can guarantee. And, you know, 30 years is a long time, and I just feel that perhaps 15, 20 or 20 years might be a more suitable solution.
Councillor Jones. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask Councillor Hallam, would she not envisage that these matters will emerge during the discussions of the Task and Finish Committee?
Yes, absolutely. That would be part of the work. Thank you.
Councillor Lofts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's 41 years, all but a month, that we moved into Wortley Road.
Questions?
I
questions,
haven't
Councillor?
always been here, but this is my ward for 31 years, and I do know something about it because I was heavily involved in the rebuilding of
Councillor, is there a
Highcliffe
question?
Pardon?
We're in questions.
In that case, I'll wait until I can speak.
Thank
I thought
you. No,
there was no.
we're just in questions at the moment, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Bungey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's partly been answered by the Task and Finish group, but I seem to remember that in the ACOM presentation that we saw, although the design was for a 30-year path, they couldn't actually guarantee that, if I remember rightly, in the text. Because of the movement of the cliffs, no one was prepared to guarantee that it would actually last 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jameson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask the proposer. She said the results of all findings will be brought back to the full council in January 2018 in conjunction with the outcomes of the coastal strategy. I'd like to ask her, does she really think that if you are going to go through all these things on the Task and Finish and get costings, etc., will you be able to have it completed by January? Thank you.
Yes, I believe we do.
Thank you. Any further questions to the proposer? Then we'll move to the debate. Councillor Lofts. Yeah, got it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for the problem earlier. As I said, it's 41 years all but a month.
Microphone.
It is 41 years all but a month, whether I need it or not. That time I have spent largely in what is now, for the last 31 years, my ward. I am aware of the problems throughout. It was some 25 years ago that the cliff stabilisation along the front was largely completed. And that has more or less worked, thanks to the efforts of a series of our officers. Some 12 years ago, the zigzag path was tarmacked as a path. Some movement, I believe, was noticed and logged soon afterwards. Members will be aware of the history of the last 18 months, causing the path to be closed last August, Last August, at the community meeting, I voted against the expenditure of £1.25 million. One of the things I remember mentioning on that night, there were other expenditures coming up, and I did actually mention the Regent Centre. All members will be aware that our money available, fortunately we're still debt free, so it's a heap of money, are aware that every pound has to earn the money that we spend on it. But we must do something in this area. I have been looking with others since August, and I cannot see how we can have some kind of access through Highcliffe Castle to the beach other than the steps we already have anywhere else other than on this site, or very near it, or part of it, whatever the words you like to put to it. I would say in that immediate neck of the woods. I wanted to make it clear, because of my vote, and I think the chairman of community may remember it, when I voted against the expenditure of £1.25 million. And Reverend Cannon will realise that my religious principles are part of, perhaps, of the reason. But I believe that something could be achieved for less, provided it is accepted that movement will happen in this area, most likely, because it always has. And as you haven't shut me up yet, Mr. Mayor, could I gently remind people that the line from the Needles to the rocks on the other side of the bay was good solid land only a few years ago. So we do have a bit more of a record in this area than many other people who want to spend a lot of money first and have plenty of time to regret it afterwards. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for listening to me as a local member. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further debate? Councillor Neil.
Mr. Mayor,
John.
I'm fully aware of the wards needing to be involved with the attached wards being involved. But I do think that this is a borough-wide situation, and there's many people outside of the three wards, and I think it should have representation from four corners of the borough, not just the ward that is relevant to, because the whole ward, the whole borough is paying for it.
Thank you, Councillor. Point taken. Councillor Phipps.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out that the ACOM report does say that the cost of 1.25 million is an indicative order of potential cost only, based on limited information and a desktop review. So, as one of the signatories of the motion, I actually don't think we've looked at the whole issue properly. And I think we've just taken the report. It was what was in front of us at the time, and we take it kind of at face value. And I really think we need to take another look at this and just find out what is actually possible. Can we do something or can't we? We haven't got all the information that we need. And what is proposed here of a task and finish group, whatever the membership, hopefully we will get that information and find out what might be possible, what the possible cost might be, and whether we can go forward with anything. Therefore, I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Dedman, you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to go into the reasons why I supported the motion, because I think they have been discussed very much around the table. What I would like to say is that I think the residents have done a jolly good job, but also so have our officers, and I think we shouldn't lose sight in that, in all of this discussion, that the officers have done a very good job on getting the quotes together, but I do think that we need more information. I think also the residents themselves have shown that it's a very, very important way down to the beach, and so for that reason I would thank the residents, thank the officers, and put my name obviously to the motion and support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jones. Thank you, members of the public.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think in the days before political correctness, there was a joke about somebody who got himself completely lost looking for a particular town. He stopped and asked a local, how do I get to wherever I wanted to go? And the local said, well, I wouldn't start from here. And if we were looking at this from the beginning, we wouldn't start from where we are now. We've got here through a series of accidents, miscalculations, and, shall we say, missed opportunities, and I fear a misunderstanding. I did not sign the resolution, not because I didn't understand the deep concerns that people feel, that residents feel and the ward members feel, but because the resolution, first of all, if I had sat on community committee and had been presented with the officer's report and no other information, I would have had to have voted with Councillor Lofts in favour of the officer's recommendation. But a lot more information has come to light. Nevertheless, I still maintain that it is the second part of this this existing minute 110, determine the best interest for making the site safe and detailing alternative options to access the beach in a safe manner. Now that's there. Why do we want to rescind it? Now, I am not saying that what is in the proposal before you is wrong. Much apart from the first item, I would be happy to support it. It is a way forward. But in all conscience, I think we should have supported it. It isn't a case that we got it wrong. On the basis of the evidence, I believe Communities Committee got it right. Whether enough evidence was submitted, whether alternative details should have been provided is another matter. But on what Communities Committee saw, I think they got it right. So where do we go from here? I think that the idea of a task and finish group is a very valuable one. I think it does include to bring in Councillor Bungay, surprised though he was, and I give him a free hit there. You are looking at council members from other parts of the borough. You do have alternative. There's been shown to be alternative options. But I cannot support the motion as it stands because I do not believe that we should delete or rescind minute 110. That's the only reason. We were right to do it at the time. I think everything else I would be very happy to support. If an amendment came forward to delete part A, I would be happy to support that in the whole motion. As it stands, I would ask when it comes to the vote that we take part A separately. Mr. Mayor, a very emotive issue, an issue that I believe was badly handled. At the time, I believe that more information should have been given. And I believe yet again we're in trouble because of a confidentiality clause. A year after we hit major problems with one confidentiality clause, we're here with another one. Mr. Mayor, I support the sentiment behind this. I support all of the motion apart from part A, and I will hope that it will be possible for me to vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some of this has already been said, really, but the decision was made on the information that was given at the time. And I think it sets a dangerous precedent to start rescinding council decisions at a whim. Every decision this council makes could then be challenged. And, you know, there are things,
Sorry, Colin, can I just hold you up here? Members of the public, can I please ask you to refrain from comments and I reckon, because it's not the right way to deal with business here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are important issues contained within this, and if the proposers and seconders and the signatories of the motion would take out section 1, which is to rescind 110, which is based on the £1.25 million costings. Now, we know that they could perhaps be pared and shaved down, but we still have to come within a budget cost that this council can afford. And therefore, the task and finish group is an excellent idea. So 2 down to 7, I'm happy to support, because that is, as Councillor Jones said, and I mentioned his name because he said it, already contained in 110. Because item B of 110, I asked at the time of the debate that this be put in, that other options could be explored. So there is no need to rescind 110. It's already covered here. And all you have to do is transpose from item B of 110 that the task and finish group be set up and we work through to item 7. There's no challenge. It's already covered by B. So, you know, we have to remember that we are custodians of this council's money for the whole borough. So I'm happy, as I've already said, for the zigzag to be repaired if it can be done at a reasonable cost and we can get some sort of guarantee that it's going to last more than 6 months or 5 years. We have to have value for money. We can't just spend money willy-nilly. So I can't support this motion as it stands. I'm happy if we take them separately, vote on them separately, to vote yes for 2 to 7, but not on 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jameson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I cannot support this motion. I can't see that it will solve any problems we have regarding the zigzag path. I would like to remind members again what was resolved at the Community Committee on the 9th of August. The Council does not proceed with the reconstruction of the zigzag path. That is what we recommended. The recommendation was for safety reasons, as well as because we felt that the cost of reconstruction would not be the best use of our resources. Item B, officers are requested to bring a report to this committee to determine the best options for making the site safe and detailing alternative options to access the beach in a safe manner. This is what we asked for. We don't need this motion because this is already in the books. And I think we have got the resolution was taken by democratic decision by the committee. And apart from anything else, we have got the wherewithal to go ahead and have a look at the looks. Mr. Mayor, I am unable to support the motion, and I trust members will vote with their heads rather than with their hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Members of the public, I have asked you politely to reserve the peace in the chamber. Thank you. Councillor Denise Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As champion for the elderly for a number of years, I remember looking back to the day when the zigzag path was opened. It was a great day as far as I was concerned because it gave an opportunity for people who were in many cases less able to access the beach. And I have to declare an interest in that I was one of them. And I enjoyed using the zigzag path. In fact, perhaps I should have declared an interest because on the wall of our bedroom is a painting of part of the castle that was the prize for the one whose balloon went furthest at the opening. And I won. So every day I'm reminded of the opening of the zigzag path. I'm not a member of the Communities Committee. I wasn't there. Looking at what evidence there is, I can see why members voted as they did. Like others who have spoken, I think really you have to look at the whole thing. It did say, let's look for a way forward. All right, 2 to 7 is itemising how you can do that. So I have no objection to that. I would prefer that we did not have 1. And I would hope that the proposer and seconder might reconsider and remove that, because, as has been said, the second half of minute 1110 does exactly what 2 to 7 is saying, except it doesn't go into detail. We have before us the chance in the next few months to get more information, to hopefully find a way forward. I do not want to see people going down to Steamer Point. Well, in most cases, they won't be able to because it's too far. I look forward to an alternative solution at much less cost. As has been said, this is the money of all the council taxpayers in Christchurch. So this is what 2 and to 7 are aiming to do. And I would look forward to seeing what can be achieved working with residents, working with those who have perhaps expertise that we don't have, working with our officers, and getting more information from more than one company.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith. I've got you.
Point of order. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it in order that I now move an amendment which I understand Councillor Bungay will second?
I would allow the speakers that are on the list to speak first, David, then come back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't at the community services decision. However, I completely disagree with the previous members' opinions on removing part 1 of the new motion. The original minute 1110 is not clear enough in its instructions. What we want is to look at a path that goes from the castle to the beach in that location. The minute 1110 does not detail that. It says we will not proceed with the reconstruction of Highcliffe Zigzag Path, and it will ask to determine the best options for making the site safe. That, to my mind, having read all the notes and the members' briefings, is regarding making the site safe, not using it as a footpath. I also believe that detailing alternate options to access the beach in a safe manner means using a different route. What we want people to look at is the location of the zigzag path, not an alternate route.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say quite a few things that Councillor Smith has said, but I am fully in support of Councillor Hannon on the motion, and I actually put my name forward to go on the motion, but there was enough support. But I'd just like to say that I'm always here to help and assist if I'm needed on the task and finish group for Christchurch Town Centre. Thank you.
Councillor Hilliard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe this motion provides clarity to the members and officers on the way forward. As detailed in section 4.12 of the 9th of August Communities Committee report, we've allocated £365,000 from the capital budget for the zigzag path replacement. Now, whilst 65,000 has already been committed to make the site safe and also to pay for the initial ACOM report, that still leaves 300,000 from council money to go towards this endeavour. Similarly, we've got an additional £260,000 provided by the central government coastal, so that there is money on the table, and I think this motion provides a way forward to seek a better deal for Christchurch. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Spittle. Councillor Spittle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was beginning to think that I was invisible, because this is the second time I have indicated I wish to speak. Anyway, the zigzag hasn't been or isn't an easy decision to make. and it has been proved over the years to have been, dare I use the expression, a comedy of errors. Back in 2004, when it was decided to repair and improve the condition of the existing track, there were, and I have the report actually, I was kindly sent it, there was concern by former officers about the stability of the cliffs. However, it went ahead, and I was pleased because I too have enjoyed the use of the zigzag, but unfortunately the prediction came true and we are now where we are. I was also unable to attend the committee meeting back in the summer in August, but recalled that the information that was supplied to the councillors only provided one, or information as supplied by one contractor. Normally we are provided with a lot of additional information, I understand. I do feel the residents must be confused with all the information that they have received and heard, etc. For example, the summer edition that came out before we had the committee meeting, the summer edition of the Christchurch Courier, it was intimated that the zigzag would be started once planning had been obtained. So consequently, the message to them was, we're on, you know, it's going to happen. Then we, of course, had this meeting where it was decided not to proceed. But since then, I do compliment the residents on all the work that they have done in researching alternative systems. They have brought in some exceedingly highly qualified people. They have also kept in touch with ourselves. And as we recently had a letter from one of them providing a lot more information, which has instigated this decision, or this notice of the motion. So I do feel that they deserve the zigzag to be looked at again. They need to be consulted. We need to consult the officers. Also, I feel I would have liked in the motion, it's only just come to me thanks to one of my colleagues, we should be looking at additional funding or possibly means. I wonder, has the funding been totally explored? Because then that would ease the situation. But I too have a responsibility to my residents, like my colleague up at St Catherine's and Herne, about the costs involved. So I welcome this motion, and I do feel that in order to proceed, item 1 should be retained. We put the past before us, behind us, and just move forward with the residents and the officers, and hopefully the path will be built. We will see the path, and it will be available to be enjoyed this time next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We all know this is a very emotive item. I sit on the community committee, and I voted the way I voted based on the information that was presented to me on the evening, and therefore I could not support item 1 this evening on the notice of motion. However, I do feel that there could be merit in forming a task and finish group, and I don't know whether we have, as already has been said by Councillor Jones and Councillor Bungay, the option to establish that task and finish group within B of the original minute 110. The only point I would say on that is that I do have an issue with the members on the task and finish group, and I think that the members of the task and finish group should be a balanced number of members, and not specifically those members either on that ward or the adjacent ward, and whether that's something that we could come to an agreement this evening, Mr. Mayor, we'll see.
Thank you, David. Have you anything in mind on that? Any members, would you like to, have you got any thoughts on that?
Mr. Mayor, well, my thoughts would be that I should be on there myself. I think the chair of the community committee and the chair of the resources committee. I also feel that we should have an independent member, so that would either be Councillor Bungay, Councillor Neal or Councillor Abbott. And then I would have thought at the very least we have the proposer and seconder of the motion that's before us this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As always, I've sat and listened to quite a bit of debate tonight. It's quite obvious to me what we need to do is draw a line in the sand. I'm quite happy to support the motion as set out 1, 2, 7. It's the right thing to do. Of course it is. You know it is. Let's get on and do it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, members of the public. I'm getting a headache with the clapping now. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I propose, and I understand Councillor Bungay will second, an amendment to this motion to delete clause 1 and renumber. This will have the effect of, I think, removing the only real point of contention between us. Mr. Mayor, we have to consider, as Councillor Bungay has pointed out, the problems of amending history, if you like. One councillor has mentioned about drawing a line in the sand. The trouble with drawing a line in the sand is that the tide washes them out. So let us think, why, as I said before, do we want to excise this minute, to rescind it? We said that the council does not proceed with the reconstruction of the Highcliffe zigzag path. Now, as the Chief Executive once pointed out to me, you don't just take the words of the motion, you take the background and the report. Now, while I might disagree with him in general, I think that's a fair point. It is made quite clear that this refers to the AECOM report and the expense. Well, I think everybody's quite happy. We don't want to go down that road with that expense. The second part, we're just clarifying. Admittedly, we're saying we want the report to come to council, not to communities. We want the work to be done by councillors, not just by officers, because of course we are, or we should be, a member-led council. So why do we object to taking that out? I would hope that we are able to work together in harmony. Maybe a forlorn hope, but I hope that on this issue we can go together. Is it worth the hassle? And I ask the proposer and seconder to accept this, therefore, as a drafting amendment that will not need, if you'll accept this, then I think this motion will be carried unanimously. I am very happy to support parts 2 to 7. Let's do this, and as we said, this is a way forward. It's a way out of an impasse that we shouldn't have been in. No doubt about that. But we are where we are. We have to move forward, and Councillor Hallam has shown us that there is a way forward with the Task and Finish group. All I would like to do is remove one stumbling block that I believe, and perhaps the officers could advise me, is there anything in Part A of Minute 110 that requires rescinding if this motion is to operate. Now, I hope we can agree on this. If the Chief Executive or the Monitoring Officer would like to advise me on this one, I do hope that the proposer and seconder will accept this amendment.
Councillor Bungie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm happy to second this for the reasons I've already stated earlier, but I think with the establishment of the task and finish group, which we can talk about to sort out the membership of that, part of that can be investigating also, although it's not mentioned in the 2 to 7, alternative means of finance and whether we can obtain funding from other sources. And I would like to think that the task and finish group can look at that along with everything else. So, as I said earlier, I can't support item 1 of the motion, but I'm happy to support 2 to 7. So if item 1 can be removed with the proposers and seconders and other members' acceptance, then we can move ahead very quickly. Otherwise, we need to vote on the various options. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't vote for the amendment to the motion. I think it's important that it's not relevant who voted for and against the original decision. And we need to not be stuck in the past with that decision. We need to clear the decision. And I don't actually think it's just part A of that decision that is a problem. I believe part B is not clear enough. It's asking for us to look at alternative options for access to the beach, not for alternative options for zigzag, alternative options for access to the beach. It's not clear enough. We need to rescind it. We need to look at this again.
Councillor Bath. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I speak to the amendment and reserve my rights to speak to the original motion. The amendment, to my mind, is being put to save face of the people who voted one way at the meeting and now do not want to say that they may actually feel that they should vote another way and look at things from a different direction. The amendment puts behind us a decision that was made at the Community Committee which clearly states the Council do not proceed with the reconstruction of the Highcliffe zigzag path. The new motion is completely the opposite to that. So why would we want to retain the original motion and not rescind it?
Thank you, members.
I will not vote in support of the amendment and I will not agree to it, and I reserve my rights to speak to the original motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hallam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel exactly the same as my colleagues that have just spoken. I believe that we should rescind the previous motion. I think it doesn't matter who said what, whether it was right or whether it was wrong. We have to just draw a line. That motion very clearly states, as we've said, that it was to make the site good, and therefore there would be no further existing path. And so for us to actually propose the new motion, we need to wipe the slate clean. So I very much cannot, I'm afraid, support the amendments. And again, I will reserve my rights to sum up at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not be supporting the amendment. It's wrong. That's simple. It's wrong. And you all know it. And so do I. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Are there any more speakers to the amendment? Councillor Neal.
Mr. Mayor, I did already raise item 6 on this recommendation, which my name was mentioned, so I'm quite happy happy to get up and support the leader, who I feel should have been included in this list. I still feel that it is a whole borough issue, and it should be representatives from the whole borough, not just the 3 wards.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bath.
If I could just speak to the members that have been suggested to go onto the task and finish group. There are...
Councillor, we're on the amendments.
Sorry, I thought that Councillor Neil was talking about the task and finish group members. And...
Oh, sorry. No, we're on the amendments. Fred's got it wrong, I'm afraid.
Would you like me to proceed to talk about the members on the task and finish group, or shall we just speak to the amendment for the moment?
I prefer you speak to the amendment.
Fair enough.
Any further questions to the amendment? So there's no further questions on the amendment. Do you want to? Mr. Hallam has the right first,
Yeah.
David.
Okay.
Yes, assume that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members. Just to briefly sum up, I think we've had a very good debate regarding the zigzag. I think the feeling is pretty mutual. Oh, sorry, we're just on the amendment, aren't we?
We're on the amendments.
Oh, I must apologise. So yes, as I say, to sum up in terms of the amendments, I cannot be in support of that, and I do still feel that we need to rescind the original motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jones, do you wish to sum up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll sum up formally.
I thought it was. Okay. So there's an amendment on the table. We'll now take a vote. Those in favour of the amendment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the amendment is that part 1 of the proposal be deleted and the remaining sections renumbered. In other words, it will remove the proposal to rescind minute 110.
Everybody clear on that now? Those in favour of the amendment?
Five, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. To the contrary? The amendment is lost. Thank you, members of the public. Thank you. Now we'll take the... Any abstentions? Any abstentions? No, we're on the amendment still. Okay. Now we'll go to the substantive motion, which is the motion which is on the table. Those in favour of debate on the motion. Colin.
Mr. Mayor, it's just a question. If members agree, can we vote on these individually, 1 to 7?
No.
Otherwise, some members who fully support items 2 to 7 will vote against the whole motion. That's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Councillor Bath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If all other members have completed the debate, is that the case? Oh, okay. I'll defer to Councillor Darren Wilkes before I speak.
You wish to speak in debate, Councillor Wilkes?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do wish to speak in debate. I wanted to listen to what others had to say before I actually spoke. But to me, Mr. Mayor, it's absolutely clear that we made a decision in the Community Committee in August based on the facts we had before us at that time. Those facts included the report, yes, but they also included the officers, all the questions we asked the officers, and the answers we had to those questions. It was because of a number of things within the report that we felt at the committee that we should vote in the way we did. Not the least of which, Mr. Mayor, was the possible expense to this borough when we know that our funds are getting tighter and tighter. It will be over the next couple of years that at the moment we have a balanced budget, but we know that that won't last forever. We are responsible for that budget for everybody in the community, not just people that would like to see the path retained. I'm sure that I speak for every member here and every officer that works in this council when I say they would like to be able to retain the path. But I don't believe that at this moment it is possible for us to do that. I think the financial implications to the rest of the borough are far too great. The report that came before us had a lot of detail in it, and I know that the officers considered all the issues that came forward before the committee, came forward from our members and members of the public. Each one was considered. We as a council have to think of value for money for the whole of the community of Christchurch. After all, it's that community that we're looking after here and making the decisions on their behalf. To me, Mr. Mayor, there was no point in me being elected as a councillor if I wasn't going to be able to stand up in front of any number of people and say that I believe, under all the evidence we had in front of us and all the work that went into it, that I believe we made the right decision, and there is no way that I could back down from that at this time or at any time in the future. The decision was based on the information, and the recommendation, as you've had read to you several times tonight, was not to proceed with the reconstruction of the path. That path's been moving since soon after it was built. It's in an unstable part of the cliff. But we did bear in mind the fact that members all wished to be able to provide something in that area, and they certainly knew that the members of the public felt that, because as soon as I knew that there was a problem with the costing of this path, I asked the officers to put out a press release so that we could make sure that a wider members of the public actually knew what was going on, and thankfully they did just that.
Quiet, please. Thank you.
We did our best to let everybody know. I also emailed all our members the same day to tell them that there was a problem, and would they please take detailed note of the reports that were coming out so that they were aware of it. Mr. Mayor, I believe that at that time the information we were given was correct, and I believe we all made decisions based on the best information possible to us that night. So I am very happy to stand with it, because the second part, as you've heard time and again, was us trying to establish another way down to the beach from the castle. And if, Mr. Mayor and fellow members, we'd allowed the officers to get on with the work that they were going to do, we'd have been a lot further forward now. We most certainly wouldn't have been in the position we are now. We do the best we can for the whole of the community. And we...
Members of the public, please. I shan't ask again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think we should be stood here tonight supporting the decision of that committee and the advice that the officers gave us at that time and have given us since then. So, officers, thank you for all the hard work you've put into this. And I know that you must all be feeling you've been put in a very difficult position, because this recommendation that's come to us tonight is going to make it very, very, very difficult for you to get everything in place for the January meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Jameson. Indicated? Didn't indicate. Councillor Bath.
Councillor Spittle.
Councillor Spittle, I thought you weren't paying attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to speak. This, as has been said, is a very emotive subject, but looking at the notice of motion, there is no, I cannot find any criticism of any councillor, of any committee at all, except in item 1, which has been fully debated. I feel this council is doing the right thing. We are looking again at the situation. We are going to obtain further quotes or further information about the possibility of repairing or reinstating the zigzag. We do not say here we will definitely be doing it, but we are looking at it. So, I mean, I know and I can feel the feeling of all the residents. I can fully support, and if it is within our budget, then it should be done. But we must look at it again. We owe the residents that at least, and particularly bearing in mind the amount of work they have done, how they have proven that it can be done at a far lower cost. So, as I said, really, we should just go ahead with it and vote and set up the task and finish group as soon as possible, so that we can proceed towards bringing the report back to January, to the council meeting in January, when again that will probably be quite an emotive debate. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, members. Thank you, Councillor. I would just like to remind you that there is no full council meeting in January, it is February. Councillor Bath, you wish to reserve your right, exercise your right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As long as all other members have now spoken, I've listened to the debate and heard what all members have said. And I think it's been a very useful debate because everyone's managed to air their views. I also have to thank the officers. They've done an awful lot of work already on this for us. They've taken our original motion and actually looked at it again and come up with a lot more information for us than we originally had, which I do thank them for. I originally voted against the motion at the Community Committee because at the time I believed we needed to look at more options for retention of the zigzag path. Not to spend the 1.25 million that was proposed by ACOM as being a possible estimate, and I stress estimate, of us, what might cost us. We didn't have a definitive figure, we still do not. Our residents overwhelmingly are in support of trying to find a way to do this. They formed a group fronted by many professionals in many fields to look at other options. And I too have to thank them because they've worked jolly hard. And I believe that we should work with their expertise, given freely, and the time that they've given to this already, to achieve a solution that works for everybody. The previous motion needs to be rescinded because it is completely opposite to the motion that we have in front of us. Interestingly enough, at tonight's meeting, we've been looking at the outcomes of our corporate plan themes. And our leader highlighted one of those in particular. He highlighted the importance of supporting healthy lifestyles and activity. And to me, the zigzag path is one of the many things that we provide for our residents in that manner. A lot of people I know, the able and the people who are less able, use it as a way to go down one way, along the beach, up the other way and round, or just to go down and back up again. And there are many residents without that who probably would be less active. And that is one of our corporate goals, to make people more active. So that to me is one of the things that we should be thinking about. The economy. Our goals say that we should be open for business. Closure of this path without looking at options outside of the box restricts business opportunities to both our castle, which was one of our main economic drivers and one of our jewels in our crown that we are so proud of. If it was any private business and they had a zigzag path going down to the beach and they were running it as a business, would they so easily take the advice from one consultant to go out to other, without going out, finding the true cost of it, and then say, actually, we're just going to shut it? I don't think so. We have to be a business-focused council, and we have a business to run. It is Highcliffe Castle. And to me, this is a business opportunity as well as it is an opportunity to provide what our residents overwhelmingly want. Also, the new tea rooms who have invested highly in the castle. I can't believe that they're happy that one of the main access points to their new venue that they've invested in is now going to be shut. Effective council. We say that collaboration and partnership is something that we should promote. Surely this is the ultimate partnership, to use the expertise of our residents and work together mutually for the beneficial outcomes for all. We also want to improve the residents' satisfaction with the council, and I'm sure if we don't look at all options, we're not going to come up with such a satisfying result with residents saying that they're happy with the way that we run the money that we get from them as taxpayers. The environment. Maintaining and improving satisfaction with the green space and the amenities. Removing the zigzag path without looking at all options, I believe, is not facing one of our corporate goals and working towards it as best we can. I maintain my views voiced at the original community committee in August. We need to look at this, we need to think outside the box, and we need to come up with a solution that works for everybody. We cannot ignore the financial constraints that our council is facing. But we need to try to work towards the budget, which has already been agreed by everybody in this room towards repairing the zigzag path. Fundamentally, being a listening council, working in partnership with our residents who elected us.
Can you draw in over 5 minutes?
To achieve the corporate goals that we have all signed up to as members of this council is crucial. And I commend this motion to you all, and I hope you all will vote in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Bath. Councillor Hallam, would you like to sum up, please, as the proposer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to start by thanking the officers again for the hard work that they've put in with preparing the original documentation and reports that we received, and also as well, since the original motion was put in place, a number of our original questions and issues that we raised were also addressed. So I'd like to thank them for that. I'd also like to thank the residents for all of their hard work and perseverance, for sort of trying to channel a way forward, and for working with us there. And also I'd like to thank the members this evening. I think we've had a really good full debate this evening on the matter. And really, I just really wanted to do a really short summing up, because I think everybody has really spoken quite succinctly this evening. We're all in agreement that the original costings were far too expensive. However, I would like to remind you that we do have funds that have been approved, as other members have already suggested this evening. And therefore, any task and finish group that we have and anything that they'll be working towards will ensure that they find a solution that can be investigated and hopefully implemented within those funds that we have available. I would like to just, as we've been, Mr. Mayor reminded me just now, is that we don't actually have a meeting in January. So also we need to just make sure that we do put a slight amendment in the amendment for obviously the new date. So it's just to make sure that we've got that in there. But I really do want you all to think about your vote this evening. I do think that we need to progress this forward. We need to work with our residents, we need to work with our officers, and we need to work together as members of this council to find a suitable way forward to ensure that we have a suitable path for our residents, for our visitors, and for the well-being and the local economy for all. So thank you very much, and I hope that you put your votes forward in the right manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Now I'll put it to the vote.
Mr. Mayor, would it be possible to take part one separately?
No, I'm keeping it together, David. We voted on one. We go to the vote. Those in favour of the amendment, please show. Motion. Notice of motion as put forward. Just wait until you've counted up.
$13, Mr. Mayor.
Those against?
$6, Mr. Mayor.
Any abstentions?
And 1.
That motion is carried. Thank you very much indeed. Now there be no further business. I declare the meeting closed.